Hi, it's Cheryl. It's going to be work day 5 out in the back. So today we're going to get some clearing done, some planting done. Two of the plants arrived, and then I'm going to walk around and get some other stuff to divide. So we're going to do that first and then go check out what's going on out back, and then I'll start getting some work done. So day 5, we're getting there. It's looking so much better. All right, so we're starting here in a little wander in uh, the area around my pool. And so this container right here is full of this hosta, whose name I don't know, and that has been living in that container for a few years. And the container really needs to come inside for the winter. I left it out last winter, but I'm not going to make that mistake again. So I'm going to actually divide that hosta up and use the pieces of it underneath the juniper. There's a second one in here that I just potted up not too long ago from divisions in the side of my garden that I was gonna leave, but I'm also gonna take those divisions out and use them. They're sitting underneath these Fats heteras that are underneath this pavilion. Look at my pretty lights. I love it out here. So anyway, I'm going to divide up those hostas and use them under the juniper. So that is going to be one of the things hopefully I accomplish today. So there's some other plants that I'm going to be using. Oh, there's my big long shadow. So two shrubs arrived from Proven Winners Direct. Oh, let's take a meander at this, a little side trip to look at hibiscus. Beautiful. So anyway, this is Little Quickfire. And we're going to look at my big Quickfire out front, but look at the foliage on that. Isn't it beautiful? So that's one of the shrubs I decided I was going to use for outback because I 100% know rabbits leave my paniculata hydrangeas alone. And this has a really long season of interest. So all the panicle hydrangeas, the big white ones that turn dark colors in the later part of the season, this one comes into bloom a full month before. So you get a lot more bloom time on that shrub than you do on a lot of the other panicle hydrangeas. And it's a very open bloom. It's not like a limelight or some of the other ones. We'll walk by one over here. Don't look at my lawn. We're getting it back. We've just overseeded. So a lot of the limelights, like they came out. This is one of them. And a lot of the other panicle hydrangeas, they have really dense inflorescences. And sometimes what can happen is if we have really wet weather in the late summer when they are looking like this, before they can actually turn color, they will get brown spots. So these are much more open. And oh, let's take another pause for beauty of the exfoliating bark on my Seven Suns flower, which is also about to flower. It's all in bud. So we're about to be covered in white flowers that the bees love. We'll come back and look at him when he starts flowering. But anyway, we're walking over to look at this, the big Quickfire, which is in the front of my house. And there's also a daylily out there that I'm going to take out. I was going to avoid using any daylilies, but I'm going to tell you that the rabbit situation is leading me to want to, because they definitely don't touch daylilies. So there's also a bunch of hosta in here that I might be taking divisions off of. There's maybe 4 different varieties of hosta in here that are potential candidates for me to take. Oh no, there's more than that. There's probably 5 or 6. So there's lots of choices in that bed. We're coming up on the shrub. So this is the full size Quickfire right here. And I cut this thing back way, 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 way back to the ground. It has these beautiful dark stems, and see how open and how this is completely already turned its late season color. So this is the bigger version of the shrub I'm going to use. This is big Quickfire, or regular, normal Quickfire. And I'm also going to be moving this daylily. So I have a picture of it, but you can kind of see what color it was. That's its last flower. So I'm going to move that because I think that it looks nice next to the Quickfire. So I'm going to move that daylily from out front and then go get the two little mini Quickfires and the hosta, and that's where I'm going to start with the planting. So we'll meander back this way. Feels like fall already. Are there apples? Yep, the apples are starting. I also have to take these ferns out of here. I don't know if I'll get around to it today. They're getting too much sun over here, and the hydrangea has filled out, and so it doesn't need them there. It just needs a different ground cover. So those are going to go out back, but I don't know if I'll get to that today. All right, so we're going to go back. We're going to go out back and see what's what. So happy we're getting this lawn project underway because it needed doing. All right, so we're coming back up to this big mess. Oh, see, and this is where I got to figure out how to use this gimbal because it decides what it wants to put in the frame. I want it to look this way. All right, so let's walk out back. To where this garden is. So underneath here, I was laying in bed trying to think of if hosta was the right answer for under here. I do have a lot of ginger and pulmonaria and all sorts of other things that I could use, but I really just want it to be hosta. I just want it to be hosta. I don't know why. The ginger, I think I'll have a tough time controlling its spread into the walkway. I don't know, every plant has its upside and downside. The ginger could be hard to control. The hostas could be a rabbit problem. Anyway, so let's just talk 1 second about what's going to happen today. In these two spots here, one of the new Quickfires there, one of the new Quickfires there. I have to pull out that Rosa rugosa. I was trying to remember how that got in there, and I had a little trip down memory lane trying to figure out what used to be in this garden, and that Rosa rugosa was actually worked itself there from way back behind this arborvitae. So behind this arborvitae right here was, and this Ninebark directly behind there was Rosa rugosa that was planted when this was a full sun garden before the white pines that are up here grew up and made it a full shade garden. So that's what's going on there. And I'm going to talk about this tree too when I start planting, because I also, again, had a little trip down memory lane and remembered how this garden began. So I'm going to go get the shrubs and the hostas, and I'm going to start getting some work done out here. Okay. This little plant growing here, and we're over in my rock garden, is a Penstemonj called, well, it was Husker Red when I bought it. And I also had Penstemonj dark towers and a bunch of white ones, all different names, in areas of the garden. And they are some of the most prolific seeders that I have. They also have fantastic root systems, and they have worked really well in the other garden, holding in the dirt in from eroding down the hill. So I came over here to dig out some more divisions, and that's some of what I'm going to put over there. This plant has tall flower spikes with white flowers that the hummingbirds love, and rabbits don't ever touch it. So this plant is going to be one. I have so much of it over in here. You can see this is all that underneath this apple tree. So I'm going to take some divisions from here, Plus I have some over there already. And, you know, you got to work with what works. And the leaves on this are pretty enough. And like I said, the rabbits don't eat it, and the hummingbirds love the flower, and it's super easy to take care of. So I'm going to add some of this over in there to help with the erosion down the hill. So this is Penstemonj Husker Red. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get these two plants in. So while I was not sleeping the other night, and that's when everybody's minds usually run when you can't sleep, I was trying to remember how this garden sort of started, how it ended up so bad. And this tree next to me, this weeping cherry right there, is actually the third tree that's gone into this garden. So when this garden was first planted back in the day, this, where that tree is, was an ash tree. And this was in, you know, the early 2000s. And that ash tree was there for a number of years. So what was planted in here was kind of more like the shade gardening situation. And that tree succumbed to emerald ash borer. It had just really gotten into our area right about that time. And this tree got infected and promptly died on me. So I had a garden that was done, and it went from a garden that was done to a garden that was undone. And I had to take out the ash tree. And actually, I cannot remember what the second tree we planted was. So we planted another tree right where this cherry is. And a couple years after that, really not long at all, we had an ice storm. So that was, I think, 2011. So the ash tree was here for a number of years. Shade garden, beautiful. Then ice storm comes through in 2011, wipes out just everything. So whatever tree was here was only here for a couple of years, and the ice storm took it out. And the ice storm actually, the maple tree that I, in the last video, showed, the big maple tree, red maple right to my left, that got decimated. But when we were working with an arborist after that storm, we decided to leave it. So that tree that came out, can't even remember what it was because it wasn't here all that long. And then I had to just throw something in here. I chose this cherry tree. I see it from the kitchen window, so I want it to be something pretty, you know, to look at. And, you know, it's fine. But I lost interest in this garden really after that because we had already replanted it. We'd already had, you know, to go through a couple of big ticket items, big trees, and I wasn't happy. So I sort of just, whatever. And we had to change the planting because, you know, it was a shade, there were shadier plants here. What is that? Daylily. And then we had to replant. So then I just started stuffing anything out here that would sort of fit the bill, whatever. It didn't matter what it was. I would just stuff any plants out here that I thought would survive. And then the rabbits came in the next few years, and we started having serious rabbit problems. And on it went. And this is how it was since really after the ice storm. And so now, again, we're going to bring this back to something I love. So the other thing, I'm going to walk over and move the camera a little bit that we can see is that there are two trees in this garden. The cherry tree, and I've shown this already, this lilac tree. This is a Japanese lilac. Oh, camera. Right here. And it is taking its sweet time. It has been in here for way long enough to have been doing more than it is. So yesterday, I came in, I had like 10 minutes in between a bunch of things that I was doing. And in my jeans and shirt I was wearing to go out to a trivia night last night, I just came out and quickly dumped compost in here. I actually went underneath with a shovel and lifted the tree root system up a little bit because it was leaning toward me. And I put a stake in the back right there. So this is growing as a multi-stemmed tree instead of a tree with a trunk. So I'm going to let that happen. Instead of choosing which of these trees stays, and the idea was we would see which one ended up being the healthiest and we would take the other out after losing two back here. I'm going to leave this one as a multi-stemmed, really large bush if I can get it growing. So it has, instead of having a single trunk on the bottom, you can see it has multiple leaders, multi-stems. So I'm going to, like I said, let that happen. I'm going to see how big I can get this without letting it become a tree, and it will fill up that whole spot in there. And I have some plants in mind for back there, but first I need to take out the Rosa rugosa that is in there and get rid of those daylilies, and then go get the hosta for under the juniper. All right, so that's the plan next. Okay, so I've been working for like 2 hours. I got the hydrangeas planted. I moved that amsonia that was there, and now we're going to try and move that birdhouse. I went to get help. All right, so we dug that out, and it did have cement on the bottom of it. So I have, well, how far down do you think that is? A foot to dig it back into the ground. So there's the big hole over there. Oops, I always get this tripod caught on. So there's a big hole we just took it out of right there. It had been buried in there for a few years, and now we're going to put it in the ground right there. This thing is old, huh? You made a big face. All right, time to get this in the ground. Well, it's finally starting to feel a little gardeny. So I got a lot of transplanting done in here, and I don't know if I mentioned it already in any of the videos I've done before, but one of the things that grows in not only this garden, but a few of my gardens is, yeah, I did, this dark leaf Penstemonj. So that all got put in here. I did mention that this morning. That got put, a whole bunch of divisions got put into this garden to help control the erosion coming down the hill and those little daylilies. I moved another little Bluestem so that there'd be one on this side of the path that you could see visually from the other one. This spot, I got a lot of it leveled down, and I brought in a lot of compost toward the back and did some weeding underneath those hedges. And this is where there are shrubs going that haven't arrived yet. So not worried about that because can't do anything about that till they get here. It's this part over in here that I was mostly working on and made good progress. Move this post that had a birdhouse on the top of it, and we put one on the front of it when we lost the one on the top because it was so buried in that corner. It was getting completely overgrown. I am going to put a new birdhouse on the top of that. So that's going to be a fun thing to shop for, is a new birdhouse that, again, I'll probably be able to see from the back of my house if I get a big enough one. I put in the Quickfires. I put in another Weigela, the same midnight sun. I do have to protect these shrubs right now. When they're young, that's a danger time. So I am going to get some cages around those before I quit for the day. I did put more of the Husker Red in here, some more little divisions. So again, it doesn't look very gardeny right now until all this stuff starts to fill out. So there's a ton of it under in there that I left. I just gave it some better dirt. And then there's some more divisions in here. And then I did line more of the rocks with ajuga. I hold no delusions about having to fight the geranium that was in here as a ground cover. Probably for years I'll be dealing with that, but that's okay. There's a couple more blue stems right in around the post of the birdhouse, and that's what I got done today. So lots of planting in here. It's starting to look more and more like a garden. It does need some mulch, and it will need more plants, but for now that's what it has. And then when those 3 shrubs get here, I'll get those in the ground and finish up over in this section here. Now I'm going to take some time and work on compost and hosta under the juniper. That's my next task before I go in this afternoon. So out of that one hosta pot in the pool area with the bigger hosta, I don't know the name of it. It was just in a container I had from a couple of years ago. I ended up getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 divisions. And I actually could have gotten more, but I want to leave the plants to be a little bit sizable. And I'm going to fill in, I think, with the other little hosta too. So I got 8 hosta out of there. So far I've spent $30 on each one of the little Quickfires. I didn't intentionally buy the Weigelas for this, but they were $20 each. So I guess if you want to count those, so $60, $70, $80, $100, and then $100 on the shrubs that are going back there. So far that's what I've spent. These are my free plants, and I'm going to go get some compost because they're definitely going to need it in here. So I'm going to go do that and get these in the ground, and that's going to be the last part of the garden that I'm going to work on today because we're going out this evening and I need to clean up and look like a girl. Okay, my least favorite thing. I think that looks pretty good. Could be rabbit food, but I like it. So we'll see what happens. All right, got these caged over here. It's got everything all protected for now. And I'm gonna go see what I can do about finding a birdhouse. That's the really fun part of this whole project, to be honest. So in we go. Well, I squeezed in a few more hours before I ran in the house. And so this was the post from that old birdhouse that was in the trees over there. And we moved out here, and we had this birdhouse in our pool area, but it was looking pretty shabby. And every time I said I needed to take it down and paint it and paint the post, there were birds living in it. There are 4 entrances and 4 little compartments that the birds live in, and there's always one in every one of them. I'll show you around the back. There are 2 more entrances, and it's like a condo. So there's 4 bird apartments in there. And I decided, since I had to paint this post anyway, or had to do something with it before, and I went in to order another birdhouse, I decided I would take this birdhouse down off the post that was on in the pool area and paint them both. And I did paint the post in the pool area as well. I ordered the new birdhouse for the pool area because that's actually the most visible part of our garden, is in and around, well, I guess it's the most visible to guests because most of the time we have people over, that's where we are. So I ordered a birdhouse that looks very similar to this for there. And then I painted this quickly and painted the post and put it back up. And so now that's what's in this. And it really, really looks great I'm going to post a picture what it looks like from inside my house. And then while I was at it, I painted this, which really needed it, this little arbor. These were just from White Flower Farm in a set of 3. We bought them a number of years ago, and they've held up okay, but they really need to be painted. And Bill had painted them just sort of with a light spray earlier this year, but they really, really needed a good painting. So I did one. There's still 2 more in the garden in other places, but anyway, this one is now painted. So I painted that, and I painted this birdhouse. It looks pretty fantastic, I think. So I'm pretty excited that we now have this in the garden. And oh, I just touched the microphone. I apologize. And so I'm really excited we have this in the garden. And so everything I wanted to get done today, I got done and more. So that's pretty great. So now we're on another little break until we get some more willow branches and stuff down off the trees with the pruning saw and run the chipper again. All right, so a couple days break again. So this is the view from inside our upstairs window. You can see down into this garden. And there's our new birdhouse, well, our recycled birdhouse, and we can see it right from this window. So we are starting work on day like what feels like 11 billion, but probably is only 5 or 6 on this garden project that we've spent. So we have a paved area on the side of our house that was our kids' basketball court when they were growing up. And we use it a lot for burning, chipping, all sorts of bulk material storage, that kind of stuff right now. And right now it is full of some white pine and willow branches and some pretty large that we have to saw up, chip as much as we can, and a lot of this will form the walkway base for the garden we're working on. So that's today's chore, get all this done. All right, super fast update out back. We did a whole bunch of chipping. We got the pathway done all the way to here, which is right at the edge of where the bed turns here. So that's good. So all of that is covered in wood chips. Feels so nice. Even around the corner a little bit. Look. That's just all gotta brown up. And then the other thing we did after we finished doing a whole bunch of pruning and cutting down of some trees and stuff was I cut out one of the arborvitae that was in here and established a little walkway. So from here, it was all closed off into the back. So I had to go all the way around the whole back to get back there. So what's on the side of here, and I'll just come in here quickly. These are things that were, again, already here. So if we come in on the pathway, the hose always sits there. But there's a whole hedge of Forsythia back here, which was just planted because it will grow in sand and no water and under white pine trees. So that's right along the edge. And I'll come into the back. This is the woodland garden we started making. And we've just been poking away at it. And it's getting there. And the hose, it's so messy back here. There's so much going on right now. It's not even funny. So anyway, the woodland garden is off to a great start. We got some woody plants in there this year. We pruned back a lot of the Forsythia that was back here. So it's now growing. And I'll show you one of them that we pruned back over here quickly. So you can see now we pruned this one all the way back to the ground. And so now the stems are all growing straight up again. So they'll grow up and arch out again in a less of a tangled mess. And some of the ones in here we did too, but mostly the ones down that end. We haven't gotten all the way down this end, and we'll have to take up these pine branches, which was part of the woodland garden project, was limbing up all these white pine trees. And we didn't finish, but we made a really good start. So we'll finish taking these few down that are in this area here. So those, at least 2 or 3 there. And that one actually is driving Bill crazy because it's growing through the arborvitae, and you can see it on the other side, and he hates it. So anyway, now this Forsythia has a whole heck of a lot of sunlight now, and this arborvitae is gone, so we can come back here if we need to water or whatever, and we don't have to go all the way around the whole side. And we'll come into the side of this area that I'm working on. So anyway, that's today's quick update. We're waiting for plants to arrive to fill in the blank spaces over here. But boy, we're making huge progress. And I am really happy that I wasn't just thinking about this all winter and not doing it, because doing it now means in the spring when we come out, it's just going to need planting and stuff. Okay, that's a quick update for today. So I'm sitting on my sitting rock at the end of a very busy day 6, I think it was today. So this is the last part of part 2 in this series of transforming an old and tired garden. And so after 20 something years, this makeover is coming to a close, and I'm really excited to be at this point because so much has gotten done. But I did something last night that I had been thinking about doing, because usually when I design a garden space, I want to make sure that no matter what month you come out here, that there is absolutely something to look at or something of interest. So I just write down the months, and I took a picture of my list that I had, and I'll insert it here, and I'll also put it in the description box and again at the end of the video. And I just wrote down, starting in January, coming all the way through the months, what potentially will be of interest in the garden at those times. So I don't remember exactly, but again, it'll be in the description box. But for the winter interest in this garden, and we'll look at it again on part 3 when we do a final walkthrough, there's lots of trellises in here, and there are 2 cobalt blue birdhouses that are on an axis from one end of the pathway to the next. There's the new birdhouse that I painted to my right, there's the arbor to my left, there's a sundial, there's another arbor with a bench. So there's lots of stuff that stays here permanently in the winter that provides the winter interest. And then starting in early spring, very early spring, there's a Forsythia hedge right behind me that peeks through these arborvitaes in here. And so that is the first thing to bloom. And those shrubs actually went in when this garden was made 20 something years ago. We went on a recommendation from a nurseryman, knowing we were putting white pines and birches and stuff out back, what we could plant as an understory that would fill out. And we weren't expecting blooms, we were expecting just to have something filling in the understory as the trees got taller, which they did. And this year, as part of our getting that garden out back ready to be a woodland garden, we limbed up all those pine trees, and the Forsythia is still the base out there. It's still that middle layer. So that those kind of peek through the arborvitae, and they'll peek through more now that we've done a little cutting back there. And then we'll get into the weeping cherry and the other woody shrubs that will bloom early. Then we'll have lots of interest here in the height of summer. I transplanted some salvia. We have that Penstemonj. We have bee balm still, the amsonia, the false indigo. There's tons of stuff in here that will be middle of the season interest, and then the late season interest is pretty much what's going on right now, which is the panicle hydrangeas, the new panicle hydrangeas, the little Bluestem that's over there. So there's loads of late season interest. Directly in front of me, I'm looking straight at a stand of extremely late blooming perennial chrysanthemums. Behind me is the highlight of this garden, in my opinion, which is the winter gold holly. Plus, in the wintertime, we have all the evergreens that are around us already, which is the junipers, the boxwood, the azaleas, and the arborvitae. We also have a dogwood tree over there that's about to fruit up. I forgot that blooms in spring too. So anyway, I wrote all these things down just to see, and I was amazed that there's really going to be something in here that looks great all year round, and I didn't miss anything, because I was kind of afraid that I was missing a season, especially since this garden had a lot of Siberian iris that bloomed early. It had some daylilies that kind of bloomed in midsummer, so I was hoping I wasn't taking away too much of the interest on any one month. But I'll post that again in the description box, and you can see the plant list. All that's left to happen now are the final 2 plants that are on their way. Proven Winner sent me a email today that they are on their way. So that's all that needs to happen. And obviously the mulch, but that will happen after fall. So the walkthrough on part 3, I'm going to talk about, you know, what has happened and what it looks like now. And I feel bad that this garden, even though I'm showing it to you as a done project, it's not really a social media done project, meaning it has to wait another year. It'll be next year when we see this garden really coming into its own. So if I had gone out and bought all new plants and put them all in the ground, it would look very different than it's going to look now, because it's September. But if I had also done that, gone out and bought plants that were all in bloom now, none of those plants that I bought from a nursery would actually be blooming at the time they would actually bloom here in the garden. So often you buy plants that are in bloom in the nursery and you come home and then next year a combination that you thought you were going to have doesn't materialize because the plants are being forced really to bloom in the nursery and they're not going to come into bloom. I'm gonna have popcorn. I know I keep doing this. That's because I went in for a little snack. I was starving. I haven't eaten anything all day while I've been working out here, and I ate some Skinny Pop. Anyway, I apologize for that. I could delete it out, but I'm not sure I'm gonna. Anyway, and I had a raspberry when I went on a little mini garden tour a few minutes ago too. So I should be set for the rest of the day. Anyway, it won't look like a completed garden, I guess, in a magazine way, but you'll know the potential when I talk about the plants and you know when they're going to bloom, and you'll see my bloom chart and be able to see that this garden has interest in it literally year round. So I'm really excited. It's been long overdue, this project. I look forward to filming part 3 when the rest of the plants get here, and I hope you've kind of come along for this little journey of revamping this really old, tired garden space into something new and fresh, and that's going to take us into the next couple decades living here. Okay, happy gardening.